All right, we are live, everybody. Welcome to Insert More Coins. Tonight, I have the pleasure of having the man, the myth, the legend, the man that has the Elmerian Chronicles, and the next book is about to come out, Ruins of a Shattered Dawn in July. Everybody say hello to Corey Ratliff, my bad, Ratliff. How are you doing tonight,
All
man?
right. I'm doing pretty good. How are you?
I am doing all right. It has been a hectic day, to say the least. I know you have been very busy as well.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
oh, we've got Vivian here. What's going on? How are you tonight? Sorry, I will be muting every time I cough because for some reason I can't make it go away. So we were talking before we got started. You say that you were at baseball games today.
Yeah, we had a makeup baseball game for my son. We've had a massive amount of rain this spring here in Ohio, and they were already in the games, and my son's team had practice, I think, once or twice maybe, but they just kept getting rained out all the practices, and then they've been rained out 3 or 4 games now. And
Yeah,
so now we're doing some makeup games.
yeah. That's like us here. Like I live in East Tennessee. Even when I lived in West Tennessee for my whole life till the past 3 years when we moved to East Tennessee. I've never been through a May where it hasn't hit 90 yet. It hadn't even
Yeah.
hit 85 here yet. Like there's been multiple days where
Yeah.
it's like in the 60s and 70s, and that is
Hmm.
super rare.
Yeah, I think we got I think 87 coming up next week. That's what it's
Yeah,
showing. But
yeah. I think that's us
yeah,
too, like high 80s.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
well, go ahead. Go ahead.
I say it's not the weather I remember as a kid.
Yeah.
It used to be seem pretty cut and dry. The different seasons growing up, but
I think
anymore it's
everything, it feels like everything, all the weather is like shifting to later,
yeah,
because
yeah.
like
And
even here,
it's like not really even getting cold till like January now.
yeah, that's how it is with us. Like
Yeah,
we used to get snow into like end of November, some a couple times in December, and now it is, man, I'm not even worried about snow till dang near
yeah,
February. So
yeah. We were just talking to one of the customers because I did construction. We were just talking to them, and a lot of his buddies, they work for the civil engineers, the county engineers, and a lot of them have sold their snowplows and stuff because they're not even getting them out anymore. Like they have the blades, but they don't even need the plows anymore. We don't even get that much snow. Like the last time we got a significant amount of snow was probably, I don't know, 10 years ago,
yeah,
8 or 9 years ago, somewhere around there. But
two
yeah,
years
we just
ago,
don't.
2 years ago here we got 9 inches, and that's the most I've ever
Yeah,
seen for
yeah,
Tennessee in general. And I was like, holy smokes, I don't even know how to get in my driveway.
yeah. Yeah, I remember about a decade ago. So we had it was probably maybe 12 years ago, but um, we had a total accumulation once it was all done over the course of a week. We had like 64 inches,
Oh my
and
gosh.
yeah, it was deep across the backyard. I remember trying to get across the backyard, and even with the wind blowing most of it away, through the town, it was still up to my thighs. I mean, it was
Wow.
nuts.
Yeah. Vivian says 54 wherever she's at. I don't know where you live, but
Yeah,
that's dang cold. Like it's basically summer here.
yeah. I
uh,
think we were about 70, about 65 for that.
yeah, we would. I think it was 70. I think it was 75 here, so it wasn't too bad. All right, so I guess we can get started. So, first question typically I have is tell us about your book. So, I guess however you want to proceed. I know you've got several out, so
Yeah. Well, my main series that I'm currently writing, and the next book that comes out is in the Elmerian Chronicles. And how I've come to describe Elmerian Chronicles is basically a mostly darker. It's a lot of reviews call it grimdark, but it's basically a grimdark adult version of the Dragon Riders that we see in Aragon and things like that. Mine focuses a lot more on the brutality of the world, adult characters, a lot more adult themes and things. And I just try to be a little bit different with that. It's basically got the same premise from the beginning. A dragon chooses a person, and in my version, in my world's history, there's an old prophecy told that said a human dragon mage would become the world breaker, and Arik is a human, so he gets chosen, and he doesn't know about the prophecy, but the elves do, and basically everything goes to hell for him because then he's targeted by elves and orcs and other humans. Okay. And the conspiracies and the twists, they keep going all the way through. And as each book comes in, we expand a little bit into both the lore and the future, the expanse of the whole world itself. Like in book 3, we've traveled to 3 different continents, and there's a lot of death in book 3. Okay. But yeah, they're brutal, and I don't write books to be forgiving and all happy and everything. I write war to be as it is, and it's brutal and it's dark and it's unfair. So that's how I write my world.
Awesome. Vivian said the books are fantastic. Those are real jerks. Some are less.
So far, they have. Yeah.
And a lot of.
I like taking tropes and flipping them around. So generally in epic fantasy, the elves are. Well, at least traditionally, elves used to be the good guys, and it works with the bad guys. And I've kind of flipped that a little bit. But after starting in book 3 and kind of moving on, I get to start showing you the sides of the elves, and I like showing different POVs from different races and their cultures and how they actually are. And a lot of times by the end of the book, you're trying to wonder who is the good guy and who's the bad guy. And that's what I like.
Yeah, that sounds really cool.
So my plan was, and so far I think it's done pretty good with a lot of the readers. A lot of the readers hate my elves. They've been assholes. And
yeah.
And then in book 4, if I do my job right, you're gonna be scratching your head going, okay, well, do I like the elves or do I not like the elves? Because it'll be book 4 will be the first time that I'm actually going to write in one of the novels an elven POV, and you get to see how their culture is and why they are the way they are. And there is a very cut and clear good and bad in as far as sides go in my world when you follow the main POV, when you follow Arik's story, and Morrow's. But throughout the rest of the world, there's no set sides. There's good and bad in everything, and I've seen that. I've seen that in the world, and I've seen that in the military, and I wanted to showcase that throughout the world. That no matter what culture it is, no matter in my books, no matter what species or race they are, they're good and bad in everything, and it don't matter if it's elf, orc, druid, dwarves, everything. Yeah. So, my book constantly has you guessing who's the good guy and who's the bad guy. Sometimes the good guys are against each other. You don't know who to root for. So
yeah, I've got to get to reading some of your stuff. I think I've got the novella on my Kindle. And then I've seen it. Like I've seen so many people talk about like how great your stuff is. So it's definitely on the list. I will get to it.
Yeah.
So that sounds awesome. I know how many books are you planning to do in this series?
Well, that number's jumped around a lot. Originally it was going to be like 6, and then I lowered it, and then I came up with the idea for 9. And something I'm actually going to come bring up here probably after the 3rd book comes out is the main series, the novels, will be 5. And I've decided to go with 5 because I don't want the series to drag on for too long more than it needs to. And I think 5 is good. So it'll have 5 novels and 5 novellas. And so the 3rd novel is going to come out, and then I'll be working on another book, and then I'll be working on the third novella, and then book 4. And book 4 is going to be significantly longer than book 3, which is crazy because book 3 turned out to be, I think its current word or page count is 725 pages,
Oh wow. Okay.
and
Big.
I can foresee book 4 reaching close to 900 to 1,000. So book 5 will be even longer than that.
Yeah.
So I think if I'm hitting 1,200 pages by book 5, I'm not gonna be surprised. I'm not gonna try to, but
Oh,
I won't
Yeah.
be surprised.
Yeah.
There's a lot of complexity of pieces that have been put together for the first 3 books that'll start to fall in place in book 4, and
Okay.
there are a lot of things that'll get flipped and directions that you thought some of the factions would go that are going to go a different direction, and everything gets turned on its head. Book 3, especially the ending of book 3, it disrupts everything. I like cliffhangers. I like writing cliffhangers. I like reading cliffhangers. But
Okay.
so the cliffhanger for book 1, I imagine people going, "Oh, okay," and then I know from reviewers and things like that the book 2 cliffhanger, people are like, "We can't leave us there." And I imagine the cliffhanger of book 3 ending with tears and heartbreak and maybe being just
Oh,
speechless. And Viv is one of my alpha readers, and she's made it through to
okay.
the end of it. And it really turns everything. It turns
Yeah.
everything on its head. And going book 4, going forward in book 4 and 5s, it's gonna be crazy. But those will come out over the next few years, and
Yeah.
um, and then I'm starting another series. So
Yeah. Is it hard to write like okay, so whenever you like you talked like say okay, I'm thinking it's gonna be 5, then no, then 9, then maybe 7. Like, is it hard to really narrow that down whenever you're? Is it more thinking process? Okay, it probably needs to be this far, or is it you just write and then you think that's okay? This is where it's probably going to be because I know what I've got to tell on the story wise.
so when I first started plotting this story, or when I first started planning this story, I should say, there were a few beats that I knew I wanted to hit, things that were different than any other Dragon Rider series I've ever seen, and some of those come to play into book 3. And I knew that once that major beat was hit for book 3, that one more needed to come for book 4, and then the final part for book 5. But as I never planned on writing so many different points of view. Like the first book had 3, and I thought that was pretty reasonably set for 3. And then book 2, I think we jumped up to 6 total POVs, but 2 of them were they weren't real heavy. So book 3 we have Arik, Moro, Donalis, Gunart, Revan. She was the first time I wrote a druid POV in book 3. And then we get some that are like here and there. Well, going into book 4, I know that I'm adding 3 more POVs.
Okay.
And then in book 5 there'll probably be a little bit more. And when I had planned originally for when that beat hit of book 5, I was going to write 4 more, and it was going to be a new era. So I originally had the era of the World Breaker, and then the era of the World Mender, and that was all going to be encompassed in the Elmerian Chronicles. And I've decided that instead of doing that, I will write a second series for the World Mender era, and that'll probably be 3 to 5 books.
Yeah.
And that'll be, once that book ends, that'll end the 4th age of my world.
Okay.
I have, with the anthology that'll be coming out in December, that ran on Kickstarter, I wrote a story for that, and it's set 800 years after Elmerian Chronicles. That era is called the Apocalypse era. Well, that era and the era of Elmerian Chronicles, there's one in between there. that I have to write yet, and that's more that comes after the World Mender era, and I'm not sure what to call it yet, but it's basically an era of where they start to establish the orders of the world, the Dragon Rider orders, and things like that. And then I have a lot of prequel series I'd like to write because I've from Whisper of Worldbreaker from the first book on, you start getting trickles of 10,000 years of world history. We know that the elves, the dragons, have been around for about 10,000 years, and I've mentioned through the dragons ancestral memories of the world before, and this feels a bit like Shannara Chronicles, where it feels like that medieval era, but it's actually set way in the future. They've actually gone back in technology and things like that because the world has been destroyed over and over and over. And several points they talk about Cataclysm. And Cataclysm was an era during the Second Age in which most of the world was burned and destroyed. And so if you think about our world, if we were to burn our world over and over and over, technology goes away. A lot of history, a lot of knowledge gets destroyed, and everything's been twisted. And then the elves don't help that because the elves have been around so long that they started rewriting history. Oh no, this is what happened. This is what happened. And that's why a lot of people don't like the elves. They're a bunch of liars, manipulators.
Is it kind of like what would it be? Kind of like, say, like Sanderson's like Cosmere, or like Robin Hobb with the like her like giant series.
It's close,
like different. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's closer to Robin Hobb's.
Okay.
At one point, I thought about doing a Cosmere type thing where each of my series would be all set in the same universe.
Yeah, just at different times.
Maybe. Yeah, and maybe in the future I'll do something like that. But there's an author, B.T. Naro. If you ever read some of B.T. Naro's stuff, he did something similar to that where he had all these different series, and I love B.T. Naro's early works. But I started to notice some similarities in his series of his magic systems. I was like, oh, that's pretty close to the other magic system of this one. And I think last year or the year before, he came out with a book, and sure enough, a lot of the main characters all got plucked out of the worlds to come together and all join together. And I would really like to get on that, but that's pretty interesting how they've done that. I think the closest of what I can imagine it being is like, I talk a lot about Michael G. Manning's world and his books. And his books, all his series, or most of his series, are connected in one world. But it spans thousands and thousands of years, and each series is its own story. But everything overlaps, and he'll go this timeline, then he'll jump back 2,000 years until this timeline, and then jump way in the future until this timeline. And I think that's kind of how the world of Marinor will be. There's a lot of history and a lot of futures. So I've basically set 10,000 years of past, and then I've written a short story 800 years in the future. And I know how that story ends. And eventually, once I get the rights back to, actually write that story and print it, I'll do that as a kickoff for the future of that and the beginning of that era. And there's a whole era that comes after that. And so, I mean, I got like 30 years I can write in this world.
Hey, that's awesome.
So I got plenty to.
Yeah. There's
a lot of lore, and I like doing lore drops here and there of the world, and it's interesting to sit there and play with it. But going back to your question, I originally had so many books planned and decided to break that off and contain the story of Arik where it was, and that allows me to finish the series and move on from it. And if somebody ends up jumping into the next series, that's the World Mender era, that'll be its own story, and maybe some of those characters will translate over. But then you can go back and read Elmerian Chronicles and see what happened in the past. And that's kind of how my novellas are. All my novellas are, so far, they've been written out of the main timeline. They're both the ones I've published so far are prequels, and I do that because I like my novellas to be kind of like lore bonuses, not mandatory reads. I don't want people to have to go spend more money to make sure that they catch everything. I think that's a big failing point of the MCU right now with Marvel is all the Disney shows. If you don't catch all the Disney shows, you're like, you're confused when the movies hit.
And the bad thing is half of them ain't even any good.
Yeah, most of them are not.
Yeah,
I do try to keep up on them because I'm a stickler for story and stuff. But most of the Disney Plus shows are not very good. But I think by the time it's all said and done, it'll just be this massive, expansive world that people can dive in at any points of the series, and the stories will overlap and intertwine. And I think that just enriches everything, especially on rereads.
Yeah.
Like some people have read the prequels first, and then they jump into the novel. And the first prequel I did, Ashes of a Risen Empire, it's probably a lot more connected to the main story. And it basically tells the story of Tyrion. And Tyrion is the big bad of Elmerian Chronicles. But it's his origin story of why he is the way he is. And he's the hero of that novella. I mean, he's the main character. But you kind of slowly get to see him descend into madness over centuries. And you understand why he's set on the path he's set. He does a lot of things he shouldn't do. He is a bad guy. But you kind of understand where he's coming from a little bit. And that's why I wrote that one.
Yeah. You had said that you end a lot of your books on cliffhangers and stuff. Have you read any of Ryan Cahill's books?
Yeah, I've read all his.
Okay.
I'm a big fan of his.
I just finished Of Darkness and Light a couple months ago.
Yeah.
His endings drive me insane because they end on like just to me a random sentence out of nowhere. And it's like, you're just waiting. Okay, something's about to happen. It's like, oh, book's over. And you're like, what the heck is this?
Yeah, I remember hitting Of Darkness and Light and get to the end of that, and that reveal at the end of that, I was like, no way. But then when you do go back and reread them, there a lot of that groundwork was laid, beforehand, and then when you get into, I don't know, have you read The Ice?
No, is that next? I've got a.
Well, if you get into
Exile is next. I've got The Exile, and then it's it's War and Ruin, and then The Exile, and then I've got what is it? Of Empires and Dust ordered from Broken Binding. I think it'll be here June or July. So
if you definitely read The Exile. The Exile is good, and you get to see Dane's, and Dane's just badass. Okay. The cliffhanger of War and Ruin was, how do I say? It sucked waiting so long between books 3 and 4 because I had the arc of Empires and Dust, and of Empires and Dust is not such a massive cliffhanger, but the ending's heavy on it. But that like I said, I love writing cliffhangers. I hate reading them when I have to wait for the next book. My wife and I both got into Romantasy last year, and we blew through all the ACOTAR books, and then we got into Fourth Wing, and we read all 3 of those. And Onyx Storm's cliffhanger was just ridiculous. Like, you literally get to that last page. I've seen so many videos of people catching readers reading just that last page. They flip the page and it's blank. They flip back and I'm like, what the heck? Like it literally just throws you for a loop. But I think that's my second book did that. My second book, I literally cut it off right in a battle, and then we picked that back up. And then I do the same thing in book 3, but on a completely different, a whole different way, almost a mirror opposite of book 2. And in book 3, it just kind of leaves you speechless, and it kind of makes you wonder. I think a lot of readers are gonna be wondering how I'm gonna get out of that one. So
That's when the pitchforks come out, apparently.
yeah, yeah, yeah. There's
Okay.
there's a running joke that everybody wants to come at me with pitchforks and
Yeah.
for the endings of my book.
I say so far on, like, it's most people that have been on my channel and stuff, I've only been reading for a little over a year and a half now. And my probably favorite ending, which was the most insane that I've ever read, is probably Golden Sun. That ending is absolutely incredible and nuts. And then the beginning of Morning Star, just that whole sequence, because I read them back to back basically.
Yeah.
And it's like if you smash those into like one book, that'd be the just nuttiest book I've ever read. I mean, it is so crazy.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, I like when stories pick up right where the last one left off.
Yeah, like immediately, like no time or nothing. It's just boom.
Yeah, I've played with that idea a lot, like doing a little time jump.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think about when people do pick up my series and decide that they like it enough to just read them straight through. Because I do a lot of audiobooks, and that's what I'll do. I'll literally finish one, get the next one, and then I'll start it. And when there's a big jump in between it, then there's a lot of catch up, a lot of exposition and things. And I like just literally just picking up where my last one left off. And that's what I've done so far in the Elmerian Chronicles. Book 1 ended, and right where that ends, that conversation that's going on at the ending of book 1, it picks back up in book 2. And the ending of book 3, that scene that I cut off, I literally pick it back up right where it left off. And then I'm gonna do the same thing for book 4. Book 4, I thought about jumping ahead a little bit, but there's a lot of emotional strife that I think I want to nail home at the beginning of book 4 for what happened at the end of book 3. So, yeah, I would much rather that happen. And if you could take all my books and put them into one big book, I would want it to read like one continuous story. And those just happen to be the points I cut off.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah,
okay. Go ahead.
I started reading Empire of the Silence, but
that's literally what I was about to talk about. Go ahead.
And I'm not a big sci-fi guy, and I know that that's a little bit more, space fantasy. I'll probably try to get into it again at some point because there's a lot of what I see looks like something I would be into. So, like I haven't read much sci-fi at all. I think last year was the first time I really even attempted it, and I read Wistful Ascending by J.C.M. Byrd.
J.C.M. Byrd, yeah.
And I really like that one.
That
one felt less
like a superhero type deal, ain't it?
Yeah, I was gonna say it felt less. And I think that's always when I think of sci-fi. Like, I'm not a massive fan of like Dune or even a lot of the aspects of Star Wars, because I've always leaned more towards that fantasy side. But when you come to like other types of sci-fi, especially when it's more monstrous sci-fi, aliens, predators, Godzilla, anything that's like that type of science-based, I like that. But like I read, like the whole reason I kind of got into writing was from Christopher Paolini, and Aragon was my gateway into fantasy, and I tried his sci-fi out, To Sleep in a Sea of Stars, and it's all right, but I don't know. It's just that massive, expansive universe. It just something about it doesn't quite scratch that itch I need for stories, I think.
Yeah. So we got CB come in. What's going on? And then J Swab, OJ. What's up? Yeah, I'm kind of about the same boat as you. Like I've tried more sci-fi here lately. Let's see, I just read Hyperion. I did a buddy read with it. I wasn't a big fan. That's a weird book. And then
Yeah,
Empire of Silence, me and Josh had already overbooked, had a buddy read, and he loved that thing. And a lot of booktubers I've seen do, but I was not impressed at all. I just thought it was okay. But Howling
yeah,
Dark, which I'm halfway through the audiobook now, and it's way better than Empire of Silence, in my opinion. It starts off like I think chapter 4, and it's finally like, okay, this is starting to get good because to me, Empire of Silence felt like there was so many like build-ups to something about to
hmm,
happen, like some kind of like action or something, and then it just falls off the cliff. And I was like,
yeah,
what is this? But there's nothing going on. I realize, all these things. But then book 2, Dark seems way more focused and straightforward. Like I don't know, like something switched in the way he was writing. And it's so
yeah,
much better. So much. So,
yeah. And I think that's a lot of people always say like, what type of story do you like? And I think it's more complex than that. I think writing and how something is told is a big part of that because all my books that I write and all my books that I will always write, I'll never do the slow burn, wheel of time type where you kind of get you into the story and then everything starts popping off. I like to throw you straight into it. And
yeah.
I'll explain things along the way. Like before the book's done, you understand everything. And I don't try to go as complex as Malazan or something like that, um,
That's what those are.
but I also don't like I don't like that slow build up, and that's just my style. I do enjoy reading some of it. Like I enjoy Wheel of Time, and even Ryan Cahill does that. And at the beginning of a blood or blood and
Yeah, Blood
fire,
and Fire.
and
Yeah.
I do I like getting to know the characters that way. But I do a lot of audiobooks. I probably do 90% audiobooks because if I got time to sit at home and read, I'm writing. I drive
Yeah.
a lot for work, which just allows me to get a lot of the stories I want to listen to.
That's me. 10
And
hours a
there's
day.
and yeah, and I think there's a defining line between finding a narrator that'll do the story justice
Yeah.
and then reading it because I read Michael R. Miller's Ascended, and then I tried the audiobook for book 2, and I tried it over and over and over and over, and I don't care for the narrator that much, which is crazy because Michael R. Miller is killing it in the audiobook sales in the audiobook world. But
Yeah.
for me, it was that internal voice of me reading book 1 and then trying to listen in book 2, and I couldn't
Yeah.
I couldn't make them connect, and so I ended up having to go through and I just bought Unbound and read it, and I got the third one on my Kindle app, but I haven't started that one yet. But
Yeah.
I need to catch up on this too. But I think there's a narrator could take a story that's okay and make it
Yeah.
better than what it is, and then vice versa. So,
Yeah.
and I think maybe that was part of my issue with Empire of Silence. Maybe I haven't tried actually reading it, but
Yeah.
just not a big
Have you,
sci-fi guy.
yeah. Have you, what Vivian's talking about Sam Paisley, the Elements of Time?
I have not yet.
I have.
I've seen that.
He sent it to me on audiobook. And it's pretty good. It reminds me of what is it? Not really, not like Dungeon Crawler Carl. Not like that. But they kind of like build up their strength and stuff through different things.
Okay.
Um, it's pretty good. Pretty good.
Yeah.
It's not bad by no means. I mean, nothing like that. It's just not really my style neither. And that's a long book. Like it was like a 40, 30, or I think 30 something hour audiobook. So it's pretty long.
Wow.
Yeah. But
It
now,
was like that. Like what was that? Like that lit RPG or whatever,
yeah, kind of like it. Yeah.
or like
But
progressive fantasy.
I would say more progressive. Yeah. Because it's basically two boys. They go through high school and then get sucked into another world.
Okay.
Kind of like the not really chosen ones type deal, but I don't know. You don't really know who the bad guy is till way later on, but it's good. I liked it.
Yeah.
It wasn't incredible, I'll say that,
Yeah.
but it's good.
My first book in my series did that. Whisper Warbreaker. Um, a lot. I don't think I really realized doing it back then, but a lot of books will kind of show you who the bad guy is immediately, and Whispers of a Worldbreaker doesn't do that at all. Like you get a sense towards the end of Whispers of a Worldbreaker that Tyrion is there, and if you've read the novella, you know what Tyrion's about.
Yeah.
But if you've not read the novella, you kind of get the sense of, oh, Tyrion's got something planned. That's about it. Like the whole of book one is his arc finding his place as his new human dragon mage in a world where there aren't any, or at least not around him. And he's kind of on the run, learning his magic and trying to figure out who his friends and his allies are. And some of his allies or family have turned into enemies, and it's all twisted all over the place.
See, we got CB said, I don't mind sci-fi. I just found Empire pretty boring. I read it over 2 years ago and never had the urge to go back. Yeah, if it wasn't literally the only reason I continued was because I bought the 3 Broken Binding editions that they come out with, and because I've heard, I mean, this series is supposed to be absolutely incredible, but everyone that I've talked to said book 1 is the worst of them all. So I was like, okay, so I read it, and then luckily book 2 is way better, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So
that's always a trick as a writer, is like, you never want your book to be bad, but you want book 1 to be good enough to pull everybody in, but you also want it to be the worst one in the series, because you want to constantly get better. And sometimes that's hard to do. You try to think of how to make it better, and maybe I'll try it again. I hear all kinds of raving reviews about it. So
like I would say 90% of like booktubers love book 1, and I just ain't one of them. I can't help it. It's just not for me. Book 1's not.
Well, that's kind of what I was saying earlier, was about how stories are written and things. I think there's a difference, because a lot of people read mine, and a lot of my reviews are like, if you like Game of Thrones, check this out. I've DNF'd Game of Thrones 7 times. I've tried it 7 times.
Kidding.
Yeah, I can't. I've tried audiobook, and I tried reading it first, and I tried audiobook. There's just something about Martin's writing. I think it's that slow pace, because I tried pinpointing what it was I didn't like, and somebody was like, well, maybe it's all the political schemes and things like that. Maybe, but I absolutely loved First Law, and that's pretty low fantasy. You don't get a lot of you don't get much fantastical elements of that. Like, you get some of the monsters and then Baez as a wizard, but most of that is just regular people in this world, and I absolutely love the First Law trilogy. And after I read that, I went back and tried Game of Thrones again, and I just I can't get into it. Nope.
I've read The Blade itself, and it was incredible. Like, I absolutely love Logan Nine Fingers, and Glock is my guy. Like, he's my favorite. So, but I'm actually starting. I've actually starting.
Have you picked the audiobook on him?
Yes, that's what I was. Stephen.
Yeah.
Oh my!
Yeah, God. Stephen Pacey is
the list that he puts with Glock is so dang good. It blew my mind. It's the first time I've ever actually listened to an audiobook. So I'm like, this dude's got a list on a character. Like, I never would think of that.
And it's interesting, because his internal voice doesn't have a lisp.
Yeah, exactly.
You notice that?
Yeah.
It's like,
it's the craziest thing.
He does that. He does it really well. But I absolutely love the First Law, and especially when you get into the Last Testament of Kings. Towards the end of that book, everything is chaos. I mean, it's just everything went south. You kind of expect it to. I mean, by the time you get to the 3rd book, you don't have a lot of hope for a lot of things, but when just the way that it goes south, it's it's done very well, and it's really good.
Like I said, I've got the first trilogy, and I've got all of the um oh geez, what are they called? Standalones. I have all of
Oh
them,
yeah,
and then I have, I guess, is the Sharp End short stories or something like that, or is it a standalone? It's
uh, uh,
I've got it too. So I just
yeah.
don't have the second trilogy. But yeah, I'm starting Game of Thrones either next week or the week after, one or the other. So now you have me concerned.
Yeah.
So
No, I mean, a lot of people love a Game of Thrones, and if you're all right with his writing and the way he tells stories, if you get through it,
yeah,
I mean, I've seen like I never watched the show either. We never watched the TV show, and um, but I've seen all the clips, everywhere, and so much about it looks exactly like what I should love.
yeah,
So I don't know. Maybe it's just me, it's, but yeah, a lot of people really love it. So
yeah. I watched all the show. The show was amazing.
yeah,
Let's see, what do we have? The way Corey's been taking the traditional fantasy tropes and adding them to spin fresh, exciting. Orcs has been one of my favorites in this series. There you go.
a lot of people like my orcs.
Yeah.
I didn't expect so many people to like my orcs as much as they have.
Yeah.
Like they've been a real standout, and they kind of took a little bit of a backseat in book 3, but they get a massive story in book 4. I'm actually going to write my first. Well, not my first, because actually I do in book 3. I do a POV for one of the orcs, but book 4 you'll have one of their self-contained stories, and it follows the war chief Aragoth, and
Okay.
you'll get to see a lot more of what they're going to be doing in the future.
Yeah.
Because in book 3, I introduced a second orc clan that was an enemy to these orcs that everybody loves.
Okay. Did you do you know, I'm assuming you know who John A. Douglas is, don't you?
Oh yeah.
Have you read his book? Is it Black Crown?
I haven't read it yet, but yeah,
Okay.
I've
I know
yeah, I
he's
know.
big on orcs, I think, in it.
Yeah,
So I remember it. I have it. I haven't got to read it, but it looks really cool. I'll say that.
yeah, Black Crown.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think his main character is a half orc. I think,
I
if I
think
remember
that's right.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, orcs get a lot. I mean, Lord of the Rings didn't do any justice to orcs, and
No.
even though that's kind of the origin of our mindset of what an orc is.
Mhm.
And I used to be a big World of Warcraft player, and that's where I took my inspiration of the orcs. So my orcs are a lot more like those type of orcs.
Okay.
So I basically took like their look and some of their culture that is in Azeroth, and then I blended that with like Viking type of culture.
Okay.
And it's like when you first hear about my orcs, when you first get into Elmerian Chronicles, Whispers of Worldbreaker, they're described as that. They're described as monsters, and the scene where they first come on to, they're brutal. They're massive, and they rip through everything. And then about halfway through the book, you get to start seeing their side of the story, and I think that's where people kind of fell in love with my orcs. You get to see who they are as a people. And I'm gonna do the same thing with elves in book 4. You hate the elves right now, but
Yeah.
if my plan is that you'll love the elves at the end of book 4. So,
Okay.
and then you won't know who to root for because they hate each other.
Hey, that's what makes the story so good.
But I twisted a lot of origins on my races in my world.
Mhm.
This is kind of spoilery, but my orcs and my elves were created. They're not traditional styles. My elves were the first result of humans trying to prolong life and cloning, and they did that and unlocked both magic and longevity of life. And they created the first elves. They spent they spent centuries experimenting on them, and I'm actually okay. So I'm actually building a wiki page, and this will all be on there, so it'll be public knowledge. But So my elves, they spent centuries in cages and getting poked and prodded and experimented on. They got tired of it and revolted. They went out. They created their own faction, their own cities, blah blah blah. And about 2,000 years passed, and one of them couldn't let the past go. And this was after Cataclysm, and they decided we're going to try to do the same thing and create something else to fight all the humans. And their experiment was in a world where there was less science, and it didn't come out right, and you get the orcs. So they created the orcs. The orcs did the same thing. They thought they created something that was a mindless killing machine. It turns out the orcs are just intelligent enough, and they broke out, and then we had a war between them. And my dragons in my world actually came from another world. I would like to create that story at some point, but they came through a portal, less of a portal, more of a black hole. That's how I imagine it. But they came to my world that way. The dwarves have always been there. I'll tell that story at some point. And the elves created the druids as a balance. The treants have always been there. I'll tell that story at some point. So the history of my world is very deep, and these political landscapes have been shifted over and over and over. Yeah. And that's the world you get thrown into. So the point at which you get pulled into this world is after so much has already happened. But then you start getting the backstory, and everything starts filling in.
It sounds awesome. It's on the TBR for sure.
Yeah.
I can't wait. So, what would you say like inspired like your writing of the book or the books? I guess.
Originally it was Aragon. Every year I do a reread of the Inheritance trilogy or the Inheritance cycle. That was Aragon was the first book that I got into reading fantasy, and I fell down that hole and I never even attempted to climb out. And I wanted to write a dragon story, and when I started writing, it was originally going to be a young adult dragon story, something similar. And the more I wrote about it, I decided that I wanted to add more of my experience in the military and war and make it more adult and brutal, very brutal. And as I go on, I both try to find ways to make it better and darker. So each book you can expect something more to happen than the last book. Like whatever you think happened in the last book that was bad, something will be worse in the next book. That's my attempt every time. Okay. And vice versa. Everything that was good about one book, I try to bring more elements of that into the next book. So I really try to have a roller coaster, an emotional roller coaster throughout the whole book. And I don't want it to quite be grimdark where it feels kind of nihilistic and hopeless.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I never want anybody to think that it's not dark. Like it is a dark world. It's brutal. Yeah. I don't know if there's truly a subgenre for that or whatever, but and a lot of people, they start getting into my book thinking it's going to be like Aragon or like Songs of Chaos from Ryan R. Miller or from Michael R. Miller, and they're not light like that. And like Ryan's books, Ryan Cahill's, his books do go dark, and they do go brutal, and I think it's probably closer to that in tone. Maybe mine's a little bit more twisted. I think maybe my alphas and beta readers can attest to that a little bit more, but
I know they're talking about Shadow of a Lost Hollow on here, and
that was the novella that came out in November.
Okay,
that was a dwarven story. That's kind of the origin of dwarves in the continent of Varylia.
Okay,
and that's something I also try to do as well. Different. Each book I try to do something different. And that novella, I wanted to write the story from a point of view of parents, because I've not done that yet. And I got 4 kids. I've not really written a story from a parent's point of view. And what kind of gave me that idea was reading was Threadlight. I don't know if you've read Threadlight, Zach Argyle.
No, the Zach Argyle, yeah.
If you get a chance to read that trilogy, there are a few different sets of parents in that story, and they're done so well. And husband and wife, the main characters, husband and wife, and I wanted to attempt something like that, so I wrote that story from the point of view of a father. That's two POVs. It's the mother and father of Gunnar, and Gunnar is the main dwarf that is in the Elmerian Chronicles. So,
Okay.
In Elmerian Chronicles, he's a little over 100 years old, and this novella, Shadows of Lost Hollow, is the story of his parents and how they first came to Varylia and what happens. I won't spoil that part, but
okay,
how the dwarves ended up where they were, this is kind of how that happened. So again, it's another lore drop, but it also kind of tells you why the dwarves are the way they are, and a rich part of their history. And I'll get to explore a lot more of that later on. But
okay,
yeah, I enjoyed writing that novella. It was so different than the other novella I wrote. The first novella I wrote is a tragic, vengeful story. It's plotting and planning, and this one is about survival and family and community, and it's way different.
Yeah. They leave you on a soul crushing cliffhanger. They're emotionally killing us every time.
I do attempt to.
Said Threadlight is definitely one of his top 10 series. I've heard a lot of people talk about Threadlight being like Mistborn for is it the magic system? Are they similar or something?
Kind of.
Hard magic?
Well, yeah, in a sense. So Mistborn uses allomancy, and the way, if you actually listen to Brandon Sanderson's lectures and stuff, the way he described his magic as at least how it works of the pushing and pulling.
Yeah.
Threadlight does something like that. Threadlight, there are different strands, there are different threads that people are born with. And you have greens, blues, and then I won't tell you the other two because I think that spoils a little bit of the story, but
okay.
The main ones are the greens and the blues, and it's a pushing and pulling. So the greens can literally, if I get this right, maybe it was the blues, but one of them can basically push off the ground and push off things, and they can float and fly and make some light. And the other ones are pulling, so they can climb walls like Spider-Man and make things heavier and all kinds of stuff like that. And the story itself follows Chris, and the whole story starts off when children are born in this world. They're born with a certain type of eye color. And the eye color determines their type of magic. And the ones that are born without it, they're called achromatic. Their eyes are usually brown, and they're worse than peasants compared to noble. I mean, they're looked down upon in society. They get crap jobs. They're treated really bad, and that's if they don't get blinded and put into the church or whatever. And a lot of stuff happens at the beginning of book one that causes Chris and his wife to take the child and run, and you start expanding across the universe and stuff, or the continent. But his mom is in it. Chris's mom is in it, so you get that story of as the mother from him or from her and from Chris's wife. You get the father story from Chris. It's done really well. I've done the audio. If you listen to the audiobooks, Adam Gold is one of the narrators that I would love for him to do my books. He does it so well that I looked him up after Threadlight was done and was surprised to find out that he's not British. He lives in Arizona. Okay. He's an American, and I would have never guessed it. He does it that well.
That good.
But he's got that real deep, rich voice, and I've talked to him a few different times, and but I've listened to those audiobooks. I probably listened to the whole trilogy 4 or 5 times now. It's really good.
Okay. Yeah. Let's see. CB's want to know: is there a recommended reading order on your series?
there's not a true set order. But I think the way that I get ideas for my novellas, I think the best way to probably read them is publishing order. Even though my novellas are set in different timeline stuff. Because the way it works was I wrote Whispers of Worldbreaker, and at the end of that, you get introduced to Tyrion. So if you read that, and then you read the novella of who Tyrion is. In book 2, I introduced the dwarves. So the novella that came after that was the dwarves. And then in book 3, so book 3 will come out, and the next novella will be a little bit different. But book 3 will basically follow, or the third novella will follow Ergoth, who is the war chief of the orcs, in his origin story. And I should have done this one a long time ago, but there's that story and the druid story. I'm kind of playing with which one I want to do. But if you read them in publishing order, I don't know if it's better or not. I've heard it from both ways. I've heard people have read the novella first, and they don't get the full appreciation of the world and the magic and the depth of everything until Whispers of Worldbreaker. But I've also talked to people who read Whispers of a Worldbreaker first, and then read Ashes of a Risen Empire, and they're like, "Oh shit, this is who Tyrion is." Like, then it really hits you. It really hits you who just got introduced at the end of book 1. So I would say, as far as for not necessarily entertainment, but to grasp the story the way I want it to, I would say publishing order.
Okay.
But you can read the novellas whenever. Yeah. You can read all the novels once the series is done, and then go back through and read. It's up to you.
So he was talking about he don't want a whole fall and a blood and fire situation. I don't understand this because, and this is just me, I read the fall first, and I think that's the way you should read it. And I don't know, I guess because that literally happened 500 years, I think it was, before of Blood and Fire. But that, I guess I'm just not like, why would you read book 1 and then go back and read the novella, which happened before?
I did that.
Yeah, okay. Well, I mean, whenever I open up, I don't know if it's in the books or not, but I know on my Kindle I read the fall, and literally on it shows 2 different orders that you can read it.
Yeah.
I'm like,
are you in his Discord?
No, I'm not.
If you ever get a chance to pop in Orion's Discord one time and just ask which reading order.
Oh my gosh.
You'll be explained in so many different ways, you'll be confused.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, Ryan's kind of does the same thing. You read the fall, and the fall tells a lot of the origin of the order and everything like that, and how a lot of the different alliances got twisted around, and then then you get into a Blood and Fire. The Exile takes place a little bit before the series, and the Ice takes place just a couple years before the series starts. So, it's kind of up to you how you want to read those. But
okay, wait a minute. You're telling me that all these novellas start before a Blood and Fire?
Yeah, for sure. Okay. Yeah, I think Exile. If I remember, I think the Exile is 12 years. I might be off on that one, but I know the Ice. I think the Ice was 2 years before a Blood and Fire.
Yeah. I did not know this.
Yeah,
I'm just, like I said, the order that I seen is, or that like was showing on his thing, because that's how I have them lined up that I'm going to read them.
Yeah,
it's main story then novella, and now it's like, well, then why don't I just read all the novellas? Because then that would have put me right before the beginning of the books.
Well, I think Ryan probably does. At least when I'm reading, I'm not sure what his intent is, but when I'm reading his, he does something with characters different than I do. Like my novellas, you get the idea of the origin of things and why things are the way they are, and how that's set up for the future.
Yeah.
Without trying to spoil this too much, the end of War and Ruin, I did not like Aeson Varander. Okay. And then the Ice came out after that, which follows Aeson. And I fell in love with Aeson's character all over again. And then I'm rooting for him. and it twisted the memory of how I finished off reading Of War and Ruin, and you know why Aeson's doing what he's doing, and you know
Okay.
the consequences and the cost, and
Yeah.
it really it twists you a little bit and makes you think more about why things are the way they are, and that makes you appreciate even more the character depth.
Yeah.
Um, a lot of my novellas are less about characters that are involved now, um, and the next novella will be actually because it follows my orc war chief, um, and you get to see a lot of the stuff that he went through and how he got to where he's at the beginning of book one. But my other two, you don't get to see a lot of um, returning characters. There was two returning characters, but really just one main one from the first novella that comes back into book, 2 and 3, and she's a pretty powerful character throughout the series. But you don't really get a lot of understanding of her in the novella. She was more one of the side characters then she comes back in. But
Okay.
yeah, Ryan's is a lot more about exploring character depth and origin, and mine is more world oriented, I think.
Okay. Cool. I didn't know that it was. It's kind of like I said. I'm only two of Blood and Fire, so I've only read two novellas so far. The Exiles next, so that makes sense then. So it kind of like gives you the backstory of what happened with somebody in the
Yeah.
story that you just read to kind of.
Like
Okay.
if I remember right, Blood and Fire was when Dane came in to the main novels,
Yeah.
and the exile is that story more in depth of the idea you get in book two.
Okay.
So
Okay.
yeah,
So, do you do you have a favorite character in any of your books?
my favorite character is my main character is Arik,
Okay.
but he seems to be he's rarely readers' favorite character, and that's something I'm still trying to wrap my head around. A lot of people love some of my other characters. Moro, they love the orcs, um, and but to me, Arik is the one that will go through the most. He's the one that goes through the most highs and lows. There are other characters that go through a lot of lows and a lot of story twists and stuff too, but I really do enjoy writing all their stories, and I think Arik is definitely number one, and then his adopted brother Moro would have to be number two. Their stories are their whole story arcs are way different from each other. They're kind of parallel, but yet not. And I really enjoy writing both of theirs. But I mean, I like writing all the different POVs. I find something different about each one. It's like Arik, you have this main character who's the dragon rider, and then his adopted brother Moro. He goes off on his own path, and try not to spoil where that goes. But and then I get to write from Donalis's point of view, and Donalis is a human, and his story really twisted after book one. Going into book 2 and 3, it became something way bigger than I originally planned for him.
Mhm.
And then in book 3, I introduce Revens, and she's a druid. Her story is way different. Gunnart's story as a dwarf, his is way different. So it's hard to say which one's actually like the best story arc, but for me, the main character of Arik is my favorite.
Okay. Do you have like a favorite line or anything that you've wrote in any of your books? Like some that just like, oh, this is just incredible that you had wrote.
No, no, I always ask people for quotes and stuff like that because I there's a lot of people have pulled from my books and brought in
Yeah.
and been like, or highlighted on the ebooks. But there's none that really like make me remember it and stick out. There's a couple. I can't remember exactly how they go, but um, there's a conversation in book 2 between Arik and Alabet, and he tells her that fingerprints are like our past, are like our history. And he tells her, "Do you know that when you cut your finger, they don't scar, and they're very much like the impression of ourselves. Your scars are not who you are. They don't show, who you are as a person. That's not your identity." Just that conversation kind of sticks out, as one of the biggest ones. I think the only line I truly remember, like I can repeat over and over, is the motto of the Sentinels, and the motto for that is, "If war is upon us, then war becomes us." And Auric will change that motto going into book 4, and I've come up with his new motto, and
Okay.
I like that too. But I won't say what that one is yet.
Yeah. Just 2 more months.
Yeah.
So, all right. Are any of your books on audio yet, or going to be? Or
Yeah. Whispers of Worldbreaker and Bloods of a Withering Kingdom and the novella Shadows of Lost Hollow. Those are all on audiobook. There's a different narrator from the first book. Kind of got a bad deal on that one. Kind of left me hanging, but yeah, the guy I have now, David Winter, did book 2 and the last novella. I think he's pretty much locked in for the series, and he does well with it. So yeah, I'll try to get all my books in audiobook. So
all right. So I know this answer, but I'm not going to say anything unless you do. Are you working on any other projects right now?
yeah, I'm writing my a debut for a new series called Emberfall, and the first book will be Ashes of the Sun. And I had the idea of I read Empire of the Vampire last year, and back to back read that and then Empire of the Damned, and just that series immediately took my number 1 spot.
Okay,
of my favorite.
I've heard it's incredible. I have not got to read it yet, but I want to.
It is. Yeah, and then the final book comes out in November, and
yeah,
I don't think I'm ready for it to be over, and I don't think I'm ready for what's coming next. But in Empire of the Vampire in the series, it is a world where the sun has died, and the world is shrouded in darkness, and vampires basically roam free. And then you follow the main character of Gabriel De Leon. He is a silver saint, and he's a half vampire, and that's what the silver saints are. And he goes and hunts down with his order. The silver saints, they hunt vampires, and the story, it gets pretty twisted throughout as they go through it. But I had the idea that instead of the world already being dead, I thought I would like to play it a little bit more into Christianity a little bit, and have this world where there is one God, and this world is after the rapture, and the sun is dying. So I thought, if we took Empire of the Vampire and then did the political landscape of First Law, in a world where the sun is dying, and we have vampires, and then we also have werewolves, and then we also have witches. And then our main character would basically get pulled into this order of holy hunters. And as far as like aesthetic goes, I think that's the best way to say it. It's set like a technology level of like early 1800s. So there's, they have revolver pistols and long barreled rifles and things like that. And these holy hunters can charge their rounds with holy light. And it'll follow the first book follows the story of Kale as he goes through this world and learns his power and learns of the church. The church is Solara, and nothing is as it seems that it should be on the surface. And same thing I do in Elmerian Chronicles, where I like to show that there are good things in bad communities and there are bad things in good communities. And you'll see that throughout this series as well. It'll make you question if all the vampires are bad or all the werewolves are bad, and or are all these holy hunters actually good? And it'll get pretty twisted in it, but
It sounds incredible.
It'll be less of a sprawling epic. Like Elmerian Chronicles is definitely epic fantasy. I mean, we have different continents and so much built into it, and this will be a lot more contained to one continent and a lot less characters. There might be another POV coming in the next book or so, but all of book one will be just one POV, and I'd like to try to write just that contained story.
Yeah.
But it's very, very dark, very brutal.
Yeah.
I've written the prologue for it, and the prologue will tell you immediately within the first 2-3 paragraphs that this is not a story for kids. So
okay. Well, I can't wait to get to read that because it sounds awesome. All right, so I guess we can have a little fun now. We've went through all the book and everything. Unless, do you have anything else you want to say about your books?
I can say let me swap this out real quick.
Okay. I'd seen CB earlier. Yeah, right here. So I read The Fall first, and it was great. I totally agree. I read it first too, and it hooked me. It was so dang good and fast paced, and it nearly jarred me from going from it to a Blood and Fire because Blood and Fire is so much slower paced, and The Fall is just nothing but a dang giant battle. And man, I loved that book or novella. But yeah, A Blood and Fire, really good as well.
I just swap these out.
No,
you still hear me?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Do you hear me?
Oh, yep.
Yeah. Okay. So, yeah, go ahead.
Where was we at? I was gonna say, where was we at?
Oh, I was gonna say, do you have anything?
Oh yeah.
Say, yeah.
A lot of people have asked about the hardcovers of Elmerian Chronicles, and I can say that with a lot of confidence that the Broken Binding has exclusive rights for my hardcovers of Elmerian Chronicles. And they're going to start working on the first book. They're going to get all new covers. The whole series will get all new covers, and we've signed a blanket contract for the entire series. That includes all the novellas as well. So once the first book rolls through, and they'll start putting those out, and they'll all be the Broken Binding Press versions of my books and all the hardcovers, and they have exclusive rights for that. So I have a lot of people DMing me asking about, oh, where can I get the hardcovers? Because I did have the hardcovers for the first book, but I signed a contract that I won't put any more hardcovers up because that's their thing now. But I'm really excited to see what they put out for this. There should be, I think, around June or July. They've got some artists lined up to redo the covers, and yeah, I can't wait to see what they do with it. So
yeah, that's incredible. So good. Do you know who's going to be like the art director or anything on it? I know Patrick.
I don't yet.
Big ones that normally does.
Yeah. No, they originally signed the contract back in November for it, and they had some artists lined up, but they've been massively overwhelmed and busy between all the books they're doing, their new building they got moving, and so they're taking the time to get everything lined up properly so that it's not a rushed product when it's all said and done. But no, they'll get with me when their artist is locked in and their art director and everything, and see what kind of imagery and everything will go with it. So,
oh yeah, 100% agree with this. I haven't seen anything they've ever put out that's been bad. So
Yeah.
I finally last month finally made it to their tier 2 science fiction and fantasy subscriptions after being on the wait list for over a year. Finally, I made it to the tier 2 edition. Oh, but they have some really cool stuff. Like I got the Magician in the Rift War Saga like a week and a half ago, and that book is beautiful. Have you read it? Any of the Rift War Saga?
No.
Yeah, I haven't either.
No.
It's new, so I'll have to check it out eventually.
Yeah, I see everything they put out, and it's just
incredible. Yeah. They don't miss on anything.
No.
So, excuse me. I guess we can have a little fun now. So this will be just a bunch of random questions. So, what would you say is your favorite food?
Pizza.
Oh, excellent choice. I had that today.
I can do pizza. I can do pizza all the time.
Yeah. You got a specific kind you like more than others? Like brand or whatever?
I like no, not really. And there's a lot of different places I like trying. I generally like like taverns and places like that, like local bars and pubs, and I generally seem to like their pizza better than the big franchises, but
yeah. Okay.
I'll just take straight pepperoni or whatever.
Yeah. I like sausage is probably my favorite. If I'm like one ingredient, most of like my wife and daughter are big cheese people, and like my son likes cheese sticks or cheese bread.
Yeah,
but I'm a thin crust.
Yeah,
thin crust sausage. I'm happy.
I like buffalo chicken pizza as well.
Oh yeah, that's good too. Yeah, chicken bacon ranch. That's a good one too.
Oh yeah,
I like it.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite restaurant?
No, I don't think so. No, I don't think so.
Yeah. All right.
We get to jump around a lot, and
yeah.
I don't think any one sticks out. But
okay. Are you are you a gamer at all? Do you play any games or anything?
Yeah. Hey, give me just 1 second, all right?
Yeah, you're good. Excuse me. I cannot get this cough to go away. Let's see. The broken binding, it just consistently taking my money. Yes, 100% agree. Like I go donate plasma. That's what pays for my broken binding subscriptions. And yeah, that's what I do. So I'm not a big fan of donating plasma just because, well, needles in the arm's not my favorite thing in the world, but you do what you do. So it pays for it. Yes, very true. It is hilarious, but I don't have no other choice because I don't have that much just spare income just lying around. So I just go do that, and then that pays for my stuff. And then I end up having to pay for other books that I end up liking. So. All right.
So you asked about games, right?
Yeah. Yeah. You a gamer at all?
I used to be pretty heavy into World of Warcraft back when I was a PC gamer. Anymore, we got the PlayStation with the kids, and everything's about Call of Duty or Fortnite now. So I don't play. Yeah, I don't play a lot of games anymore. Most of my time is writing or whatever now. But
yeah,
if I do play games, that's usually the two. It is. It's either Fortnite or Call of Duty. So
yeah, about the same way. I used to be real big into like RPGs and stuff, but I just physically don't have the time now, and especially because they're so dang big most of the time, like 40, 50, 60 hours, and like I can't do that. So I basically stick to like NCAA or college football 25 or or Call of Duty, or something I can get in and get out. MLB The Show.
Yeah,
I like those, just sports games and stuff. That's kind of what I'd like to.
that's kind of what's nice about, like, if I ever, here and there throughout the years, I've kind of jumped back into World of Warcraft, and that's kind of nice. What's about that too is you jump back in where you was, level your character up, and jump into the raids and stuff like that. But if you're not playing it for several months, you miss some updates here and there. But I mean, nothing. You're not majorly missing out on or whatever.
Yeah.
You just pick up where you left off. And yeah,
Yeah.
that's the type I like.
Oh, here we go. How much time do you figure you get a week dedicated to writing?
It depends on the time of the year. Throughout the winter, it's a lot more. I write a lot more throughout the winter, especially between right after Christmas up until about March. I get to write. I would probably say 10 hours a week or so. Throughout the summer, especially during ball season, I get to write on the weekends. And if I'm not too tired, I might get 2 or 3 hours in a week. I used to write a lot on my phone in Google Docs. I know I would do that during work breaks, and I might get to do that again this summer. I'll just take my laptop to work and write it at lunch, but not nearly as much as I'd like. But
yeah,
that's how it goes.
Are you is that like would you say writing be like a dream? Like if you could quit your job and just nothing but write?
If yeah, it used to be a goal, and now I think it's more of a dream. Yeah, if I could stay home to write full time, yeah, that would be awesome. If I was making enough off my books to stay home and write full time, and both be able to do more of what I love and spend more time with my family at the same time, that would be the best thing.
Yeah.
But I no longer. I was pushing myself to hit certain points to reach that as a goal. And my goal was 2027 to make that happen. And here recently I kind of gave up on pushing myself to do that, because it was making writing feel more like a chore instead of like a passion. And I never want writing to feel like work. I never wanted to feel like I'm just really pushing to get it out there.
Mm-hmm.
I miss a lot of the passion writing, a lot of the emotional writing when I do that. I've done it for deadlines I've set for myself, then I got to rush and do it, and then when I'm reading back through it, I'm rewriting a lot of things, and I don't like doing that. So if it happens, it'll be awesome. If it don't, I'm fine with that. I got a pretty well secured job, so
Yeah, that's cool. CB wants to know, what do you think about pineapple on pizza?
You hear me?
There you are. Yeah.
I do not like pineapple on pizza.
Yeah.
I think that's my wife's thing.
That's
let me jump off here one more second.
Okay. And I'll have this up. Move into that world for you. I think he had said earlier that he is going to be on kind of do different stages of stuff, but I'll let him say that just to make sure. Oh, and then CBS seen up here where you said tier 1 for life, never giving it up. I can't wait till I finally reach that. That'll be good. Just actually getting the signatures would be the good part about it. So, but yeah. What's up, John? How you doing? I was just telling Corey about your book that I have here that I've eventually got to get to read. We were talking about orcs earlier, and I was like, I know a guy that talks about orcs in a book. Let's see. Yeah, he's very good. College football 26 coming up. Yes, it is. I cannot wait. Very excited. So, yeah, he just if you just got here, he just announced a few minutes ago that he has signed exclusivity. I think he said for hardcovers for the broken binding is going to be making his stuff. So we are. That's what he's waiting on. I think he said June or July is when some of that stuff's coming out. So, or maybe they're going to announce it then. So that'll be really cool. Let's see here. Try to find some more stuff we have. Where was he at? Yes, there we go. So I'll ask him that whenever he gets back, just to make sure that I'm correct. Oh, yeah, announcement. Yeah, that's right. Broken binding, is there an invite or do you have to pay or what? Yes, you you have to sign up to get on their subscription list. And then that's what I was saying earlier. I just now made it to the tier 2, which is basically it's the first step. There's a tier 2 and a tier 1. And tier 2 you get like you're in the subscription and you get the nice book or whatever, but you don't get it signed. Tier 1 that's signed, and I don't know, CB, is it numbered or is it just signed, or it may be whichever. Not all of them are like that or something, but it's like, I know it's like $54 $55 a month to be on it on each subscription. But now you don't have, there's some of the books that they sell without having to have a subscription. I know that's where I got the Malazan books up there, and then that's where I got the first 3 books of the Sun Eater. Excuse me. And I've bought a couple more off their website. But they're I mean, how does an author get their special? Oh no, I don't know. I don't know if he reached out to them or not. I'll ask him when he comes back, or if they reached out to him. I'm not sure. So I have no clue how any of that works. So, John, you are not causing any controversy this week, I'm assuming. Nothing on X or anything like that. Because I know, sometimes things get a little out of hand with the stuff you tweet. People get very, very upset for some reason. Uh-oh. Okay, he just wrote me. And he said he's going to have to cut it short. He's got an emergency pop up. So I guess it's just me, and I guess that's about it. So I'll see this, and then we'll cut her off. So one blow up poking the books. So with me, it's well, that's good. I tell you what, Twitter or X, whatever you want to say, is the most insane thing I've ever seen in my life. I've never been on any of this stuff until I started having my YouTube channel and all that. But actually getting on and talking to people and watching people blow up over the craziest stuff, I swear it's nuts. So, well, I'm sorry that we're going to have to end this now. Yeah, that's right. You got on, and he's like, I am out of here. I cannot talk to John. He's got to go. Oh, but I will, I guess, cut it off there, and maybe me and him will hook back up again and discuss some more stuff, especially once he gets all of his release on like the broken binding and all that stuff out. And book, I know he said book 4. What was it called? Ruins of a Shattered Dawn comes out in July. So, anyways, that's all I've got. I hope y'all have a good evening and get some sleep because it's like 9:30 here and I'm ready for bed. Y'all have a good evening. See ya.